Welcome to Guitars and Gear Live. I'm Mitch Gallagher, your host. I'm joined today by Jon Levy, publisher of Premier Guitar, and by Doug Doppler from GearTunes. Thanks for coming in, guys. Appreciate having you here.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So what we're going to be doing today is giving you a little taste of what happens at the NAMM Show. Now, the Winter NAMM Show takes place every January in Anaheim, California. It's a trade-only show, so it's not open to the public. But what happens there is manufacturers release their new products, they announce new products, retailers come in to get to check those out, and we had a chance to get 25 of those products that we thought were some of the coolest products at the show, bring them back here to Sweetwater to the Performance Theater. We're going to show you videos on some of those products. We're going to do live demonstrations. We got a lot of stuff, cool stuff coming up in the next 3 hours. So Doug, tell me a little bit about what your impression was of this year's NAMM Show.
Well, I think the thing about the NAMM Show that's always exciting, I've been to like, I don't know, 20 of them. I don't count. How many have you been? Did you count?
This was my 17th Winter NAMM Show. Yeah.
Right. So I think, I don't ever stop getting excited about the NAMM Show because, I think no matter how many years you've been playing, the gear acquisition syndrome never stops. If anything, it just excels, and as the price point seems to climb, much to my wife's chagrin. But the point being is there's always great new stuff. And what I'm so excited about, especially there are companies like Fender that are doing great new stuff. There's companies like Line 6 that are doing great new stuff. And it amazes me. And Orange, these guys are constantly reinventing themselves. So there's always something really new and exciting. And not just those manufacturers, but there's always something that was unexpected. There was always something that was an improvement upon something that came before. And I think for me, there's always an enthusiasm about going, what's new this year?
Right, absolutely. And this year's show was really great. I think there were more new products at this show than I've seen in quite a few shows in the past. So it was a lot of fun. The aisles were packed, a lot of people there, lots of new products. It was a really exciting show. And we're looking forward to bringing you some of the highlights from that show here today. Now, Jon, we're doing more than just talking about the products. We're going to be giving some of those products away, right?
Indeed we are. We've got a giveaway that's currently live on premierguitar.com. I encourage you all, everybody who's watching this online, as well as folks who are in the audience, to go on to premierguitar.com, take a look at the upper right corner of our homepage, and you'll see a giveaway link. It's on there, and there's a lot of great gear from Sweetwater.
Something like $13,000 worth of gear, right?
13,000 and counting. I'd be entering myself if I could, but I'd rather be spending the afternoon here with Mitch.
We're here, so we can't enter, right? We don't qualify. But the cool thing is that we got to play with all the gear in advance anyway, so at least we got our hands on it for a
We got it dirty.
Exactly. It's got our fingerprints all over it, right? So, Doug, one of the cooler products that we saw at the show, we were checking this out. Actually, I was checking this out Wednesday night. There was a VIP event up at the Fender booth, and they have the 60th anniversary of the Strat, but they also did something where they're kind of reinventing the Strat. Tell us what that's about.
Well, this right here is what they call a personality card, and I think one of the amazing things about the Stratocaster, up in the booth there, they kind of had the different decades of Strat, and you really begin to think from Buddy Holly to Jimi Hendrix, Clapton, Mayer, all these iconic players that have defined the sound of rock and roll. But there's something homogenous about what they do, but yet they all have their own unique voice and they have their own unique personality. And I think what Fender has done here is pretty ingenious. If you look at a player like Jeff Beck, he's constantly toggling the pickup selector, the tone control, the whammy bar, moving his hands around. And the personality that the player is able to exude through the Stratocaster is really one of the things that's most remarkable. If you look at the history of rock and roll, it transcends time. And so what Fender has done is it's again one of those things where a company looks back at kind of going, okay, this thing is phenomenal, it's been phenomenal, it's still phenomenal, but what could we do that would be different? And so this is a personality card here, and basically it's an all analog circuit that you'll see that in the video in a moment. You open up the back of the guitar, there's a compartment that card sits into it, and it basically, you have 3 cards that come with this particular instrument. One that's just a standard wiring, the other that is a cutter that basically has a bass and a treble cut, and then the other is a blend control, which we're going to demo both those latter 2 cards. And it allows you to shape the tone even further. Again, a guy like Jeff Beck is always at the controls. He's trying to get somewhere in between where the controls actually go.
Right.
This enables players, without having to do any solder work, to be able to do it. And again, it's all analog.
Right. Well, let's check out the video, see what this is all about.
So this is the brand new Fender American Deluxe Strat Plus. Let's start off with the feature set from the headstock down. Locking tuners. Single retainer on the high E string and B string. The neck has what's called a compound radius. It's a little rounder at the bottom of the neck, flatter at the top of the neck. Better for chords, better for bending. It's got what they call a modern C shape on the back, and This guy has a satin finish, really very comfortable neck to play, doesn't grip. It's perfect for really a massive range of styles. It's really, really well done. Okay, as we move to the body here, kind of got a vintage style look on the pickguard here, and these are 3 single coil noiseless pickups. They don't hum or buzz with lights. Very cool. On the quote-unquote standard version of this guitar, it comes with a 5-way pickup selector, and the tone control works on the bridge pickup. I kind of like to think of that as the quote-unquote Eric Johnson mod. Very useful to be able to just pull some of the high end off that bridge pickup, and not all Strats allow you to do that. Now, flipping the guitar over is where the magic really starts to happen. This compartment here is where the personality card lives, and this is kind of the standard personality card, and I just kind of described the functionality to you. There are 3 cards that come with the instrument, and this one is the blender card. And literally, it's just as easy to change these guys out as kind of going like this, and boom, you're ready to go. Now, the blender card is one of the most common mods that people like to make on a Strat. And in the number 1 and number 5 pickup selection, if you take this tone control and back it all the way off, that blends in the neck pickup when you're on the bridge position. And the same thing happens if you're on the neck position, it blends in the bridge pickup. Hey, so really, if you toggle between these 2 sounds with this control here, they're identical. Very cool. Now, what you're also able to do, though, is then kind of, with that bridge position, kind of that thing I was talking about with the Eric Johnson mod, you're able to kind of add a little bit of the fatness of the neck pickup into the bridge position to just kind of warm it up a little bit. And the same thing with the neck. If you find that, you know, you're in a venue where it's just a little tubby in the bottom end, it's not the fault of your amp, it's just the room, that enables you to just kind of blend in just a little bit of this pickup to taste. Very cool. All right, now the other card here is what's called the cutter card, and this is extremely cool. When you put that guy in there, this is a treble cut, and this is a bass cut. So kind of all the functionality that we kind of talked about with the blender one, now you can kind of have that same sort of functionality. We can control the amount of treble and bass on all the different pickup selections. So this is a really phenomenal instrument, and the thing that I think I really enjoyed the most about it was that it's a very consistent play both across the neck and up and down the neck. Not just because of the radius, but because of the tonality. Very consistent. The other thing that's great about it is the pickup sets are very well balanced. Some guitars you kind of go from the bridge to the neck and it just kind of is disparate both in volume and tone. This is a really well matched set. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to jump from the video to the live presentation so you can get a chance to hear this through a couple of different rigs, and so I can also answer some questions. In the meantime, if you have any questions about this instrument, please visit Sweetwater, Premier Guitar, or GearTunes.com. Cheers. Okay, so here we've got the actual guitar with the blender control, and this is just so much fun to play. This tone control is now going to allow me on the number 1 pickup selection, which is the bridge, and the number 5, which is of course the neck, to blend in the opposite pickup. So if I basically take this control all the way back like this, the number 1 and the number 5 will actually sound identical. So if I bring it all the way up, you're going to hear the number 1 pickup selection. And if I go to the number 2, and I go back to number 1 and I blend in the neck pickup, and toggle between the 2, you begin to hear how much alike they are, except for the fact now you have the ability to kind of move into the neck. Pretty cool. All right, we're going to switch cards here. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. That easy? Okay, and I'm going to switch amps. So now what we've got is the cutter control, and this control is going to be the treble, cut, back there, cuts treble. This is going to be the bass cut. So I've got them all the way up. I'm going to start off in the The number one position there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull some of the treble back. By the way, I was playing off with the Deluxe reverb. Now I'm coming through the Roland Cube. Pretty amazing. Mitch, back to you.
Thanks, Doug. Great playing. That was really awesome. And what an incredibly versatile guitar. You know, being able to pop those cards back in there. I mean, I have a Strat at home, and basically the whole body under the pickguard is hollow. Because for over the years, I've just taken the pickguard off so many times, I've rewired it, I've tried all these different experiments to get the blender thing, to get all these different circuits in there. And so being able to do that now with a guitar where you just pop a card in, I mean, awesome for the studio, right? Because you're in the studio, you need a different sound or you need a different capability for a cut that's coming up, you just pop the card in. But as fast as you can change those, right on stage, right? I mean, it takes 2 seconds to do that. So not only is the guitar tremendously versatile, but the other thing I really like about it is that it's also not active. So you don't have batteries, you don't have to worry about charging it up. You get all those tones really quickly at your fingertips without having to have an active guitar. I mean, very cool.
I think it's sort of a dream come true to be able to bring 3 Strats to one gig with just one guitar in your hand. Right. And the fact that you're able to go ahead and make the transition so quickly really makes it practical for a live gigging application. Right. Plus, I gotta say, as you were playing, it seemed like you were really feeling it. It's, you know, it responds great to your touch and you enjoyed it.
I think again, the thing that's really amazing about a Strat is it is about personality. And it responds really like no other instrument. You speak through the instrument in a way, and not that other guitars don't do it, but there's something wonderfully, I mean, look at the history of the guitar. Sorry, you like Hendrix, Beck, Clapton, just the guys that have really shaped, John Mayer, the lineage of tone. It's just a tone machine. So to be able to fine tune off of that platform, be able to kind of get some of those, again, if you make the analogy with an amplifier, you got bass, middle, and treble, and there's the stuff you want to get to in between those controls. This enables you to do that from the guitar and, be able to do it live on the fly.
Right, very nice. So Fender was doing that with a Stratocaster, which of course dates back to 1954, but Boss was doing something very cool as well. Back in 1978, they introduced the OD1, and in 1979, they introduced the DS1. Those are two of the classic Boss pedals, the overdrive and the distortion pedal from that era. What they did at the NAMM Show is they introduced the OD1X and the DS1X. Now these are special edition pedals that were announced at the show. They use Roland's MDP processing technology, which is really cutting-edge digital technology, but these are incredibly organic pedals. They're so dynamic. The touch on them is just awesome. I've got a video here to show these to you. The two pedals I have in front of me are special edition pedals from Boss. This means that they've gone back and looked at the lineage of the pedals that they're based on, but they brought them into the 21st century, used the technology that we have available today, for example, Roland's MDP, which is their multidimensional processing technology, to really bring these pedals up to date and give them great tone. The two pedals we have are the OD1X Overdrive and the DS1X Distortion. We'll begin with the OD1X Overdrive. Now this is built upon the legacy of the original OD1 analog overdrive from 1978, but it's a special edition that features some nice differences. For example, we've got different metal knobs than were on the original Boss pedals, we've got a metal faceplate, and they've returned to a metal screw that holds the battery cover foot switch cover down. Let's listen to what this pedal can do. It has a really organic tone to it with a lot of sustain, yet it's not compressed. It's a nice dynamic sounding pedal. We'll begin with the gain set to about 25%. We'll set the bass and the treble controls to 50%, and we'll leave the output at 50% as well. I'll be playing a Gibson Custom 1959 reissue Les Paul Standard through a Rivera Venus 3 amplifier. Let's listen to our dry tone with the pedal bypassed. So we've got a clean tone there, a fairly neutral tone, just on the edge of breaking up. Now we'll engage the pedal. At this gain setting, when I hit the guitar hard with my pick, I get a nice crunchy tone that's fat with a lot of sustain. As I back off with my touch, the sound cleans up. This lets us be really dynamic with our lead lines as well. That's a really nice touch to this pedal. It responds very much the way an amplifier would. Now let's turn the gain up to 50%. A little bit fuller sound, more distortion to it, but we're still not into fuzz territory at all. We're still definitely in that overdrive territory, and we still have all that touch sensitivity. As we increase the gain, the sound gets even fatter and we add more sustain. Now we'll bring the gain all the way up. We still have that touch sensitivity. That's a really fat singing tone that isn't fuzzy. It still sounds very natural, very organic sounding pedal. Now we'll move to the DS1X distortion. This is based on the original DS1, which was introduced in 1979 by Boss. Now this is a distortion pedal, so it has a different sound than the overdrive, but I think you'll find that it still has that organic touch, that organic feel and tone to it. We'll begin with the distortion set to about 25%. At 25% gain, we've got a tone that's almost in that overdrive range. It's not overly fuzzy, not overly distorted, but it sings nicely, and it really jumps out of the speaker with that grainy mid-range that you expect from a distortion pedal. Now we'll go to 50% gain. We have tons and tons of sustain at this setting. Not a lot of fuzz on top, but it's a heavily distorted sound that compresses nicely, yet still has dynamics and responds to your touch well. Now we'll turn up to 75% gain. We're getting into that higher gain territory now, but there's still nice definition and articulation. When you're playing chords, you can still hear all the notes speak clearly. Now we'll turn the gain all the way up. At this setting, we've got a ton of gain from the pedal, and it's a really fluid, liquid feel coming out of the guitar. Responds really well to your left-hand touch, yet it's still dynamic with your right hand and what you're doing with your pick attack. Both pedals feature low and high EQ bands, so you can tailor the tone to exactly what you want. But the nice thing about them is, as you crank the high end, it doesn't get shrill, it doesn't get harsh. It keeps that smooth tone that, again, is very responsive to your touch. Let me turn up the treble and show you what I mean. We've still got the gain wide open. If we bring up the high frequencies, and we can roll those frequencies back to get an even smoother sound. So you have a lot of power there for shaping the sound exactly the way you want it. I hope you've enjoyed this first look at the OD1X and the DS1X. They build on the lineage of the OD1 and the DS1, sound great, have all the articulation and touch that you want, really nice pedals. I highly recommend that you check them out. So Doug, I really enjoyed checking out these pedals. What I think is cool about them is having the two different flavors. You get those vintage tones out of it, but with an overdrive and a distortion on your pedal board, I mean, you can pretty much cover any sound that you need for a gig.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and take them into the studio. You got a lot of variety there. They sound so authentic. You know, if you remember what the OD1 sounded like, the DS1, I mean, those are just classic pedals, and these just recreate that. But in my mind, I mean, they're just even better. They just sing so well.
Well, I think the thing that's also pretty cool is that you had the guys that were OD guys and DS guys. So they were actually smart enough to put both pedals out at the same time. It was like, come on, you want to be both. And they did the silver screw. So in case you didn't know, you pedal tweakers out there, come on. So the first version, the Japanese one with the proper chip, had the silver screw. Right. And then the next one went to the black screw. It was still metal, and then it also had the black plate on the bottom. And then they went to the silver plate. Right. So I actually own a black screw, black plate DS1, and it's a brilliant pedal. And this is very... these are actually a little bit more organic. Mm-hmm. They're not quite as spongy as the original DS1. So, well, I should say the new DS isn't as spongy as the DS1. Right. They really sound great. Really excellent job on the demo, too.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, you've got this nice little sorry thing.
Thanks.
Really nice, dude.
Thanks. Thanks very much. Dude.
To you, Mitch.
Thank you. So moving away from the electric guitar world, we've got Jon Levy standing by. He's going to be showing us an absolutely gorgeous Gibson acoustic. Jon?
Thanks, Mitch. One of the most interesting guitars that I saw at the NAMM Show was a brand new Gibson Hummingbird with a quilted maple back and sides. This is a part of a long-standing legacy. The Hummingbird was first introduced in 1960 and has been used by guitarists throughout the world, much beloved. I think probably the best-known guitarist who's used it was Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones. It's instantly recognizable because of its iconic pickguard, and in the new guitar that Gibson introduced for 2014, they've kept that, and they've gone ahead and expanded on some of the traditional elements of the Hummingbird. Previously, the Hummingbirds, or earlier models, had a Sitka spruce top and a mahogany back and sides. So the quilted maple offers a different flavor, different sonic characteristics, and as you can see, really amazing look. For this guitar, Gibson actually has gone ahead and used a cherry sunburst finish, which I don't believe they've used on previous flat top guitars. So again, it's another indication that they really wanted to create something special. And that's one of the reasons why this was such a eye grabber at NAMM Show. You can tell that it's a singing guitar, and especially with the maple back and sides, it has its own sort of sonic footprint that can hear that sustain. I tend to be a bit of a strummer, So when I'm going out and playing a gig or I'm recording, the first thing I do is I judge a guitar by how well I can go ahead and play campfire songs, basically. So I gotta say, it's got a singing quality to it that I really enjoyed. And again, it's not just a great looking guitar, but it also happens to have some electronics. That's another way that Gibson has gone ahead and tried to modernize or I guess update the Hummingbird legacy. There's a beneath the saddle bridge, LR bags, and you can see, I don't know if you can see it quite, but there's a volume knob right inside the sound hole, sort of unobtrusively placed there so you can control it live during a gig. Onboard preamp. So this guitar is meant not just for looking great, but it's also meant for actually a gigging guitarist. Also, when you're working up the neck, for a big solid or a big bodied guitar like this, dreadnought style guitar, it's nice to see that you can do finger picking and more delicate passages if you're so inclined. Mitch, I don't know if you've played too many Hummingbirds in the past, but I'd be curious to know how you go ahead, when you see something like this, how would you go ahead and approach recording with it in the studio?
Well, I think a lot of times you record that kind of in the traditional way. You get a microphone and you point it toward the neck fingerboard. The body neck joint. And sometimes we'll bring a mic around to the back as well to get the sound coming off the bridge. But in this case, they've got a microphone kind of right in front of you, and it's capturing all that fullness that's coming out of the sound hole, all that resonance from the guitar.
I gotta say, again, it's the dreadnought style guitar. It's popular for all the right reasons. And this one, it's a great thing to see that Gibson has gone ahead and continued to update the legacy from their Hummingbirds. Back to you, Mitch.
Thanks, John. That is such a gorgeous acoustic guitar. I mean, that Quilt maple just pops on that thing. Absolutely stunning.
Beautiful instrument.
Absolutely stunning. Be sure and stay tuned. We've got a lot of great products coming up. We've got guitars from PRS. We've got amplifiers. We've got effects devices. We've got recording gear that's aimed at guitar players. Lots of great stuff coming up in the next couple hours. But right now, we want to talk about a recording product that was introduced at the NAMM Show. And this was actually one of the big hits at the show. It's the Apollo Twin from Universal Audio. Now, this is a Thunderbolt interface, connects to Macintosh. It has built-in DSP for running plugins, and it's really guitarist friendly because it has an input right on the front, and there are controls right on the front panel as well. Check it out in this video. Now, the Apollo Twin is a Thunderbolt-equipped Mac and PC audio interface that also includes DSP processing power for running UAD2 plugins. Let's take a look at the features on the Apollo Twin. On the back panel, we have two inputs that can accept either microphone or line level signals. We've got two balanced monitor outputs and two additional balanced outputs. Beyond that, we have an optical input. Now that can accept either 2-channel SpeedIF signals or 8-channel ADAT signals. On the front panel, we have an instrument input and a headphone output. All those inputs and outputs are controlled right here on the front panel of the Apollo Twin. If we go to the far left, we have a preamp switch. That takes us between the two inputs. So here we're on channel 1. If we hit that again, it takes us to channel 2. Pushing the input switch cycles us between mic, line, and the instrument level input. We've got a switch here that engages a low-pass filter, another switch for 48-volt phantom power, a switch for pad, and a switch for phase reverse. Then we've also got a switch that links the two channels together for when you're stereo recording. The large central knob is used for controlling input gain, and it's also a switch, so it takes us between the two channels in this case. Now if we go over to the right, we have a monitor switch. When we select that, it takes us to the central volume knob controlling our output level for our monitors. If we hit it again, the output knob switches to control the volume level for the headphones. So very straightforward, very simple to operate. All the controls you need are right here under your fingertips. We've got two input meters, we have two output meters, so you can easily see what's going on with your signals as well. The Apollo Twin interfaces with your computer using Thunderbolt, and it comes with console software as well. This console software is very important because it allows us to route signals to and from our DAW, as well as perform other important tasks. For example, down here, we have faders, we have solo, mute buttons, and pan controls. Those are for setting up latency-free monitoring when you're tracking signals or when you're recording. The first two fader channels show us the input from the Apollo Twin. The next one shows us the digital input. Now in this case, I've got it set for SpeedIF digital format, so it's a stereo input. If we change that to an ADAT format, it would expand out to 8 inputs, and we'd see those span across here and fill up this black space. We've also got 4 virtual inputs, and those allow us to route signals back from our DAW through plugins inside the console. Up here we have insert slots for plugins. Now when we instantiate a plugin here, for example, if we load in a Teletronics LA2A, we're actually recording through that. So the signal comes into the Apollo Twin, goes through the preamp, into the console software, passes through that plugin, and then can be routed on either to your monitors or to your DAW for recording. This allows us to actually track using plugins without incurring any latency. We also have 2 aux sends, and those route over here to 2 more sets of insert slots, and down here to 2 faders, and that allows us to set up effects that we want to use when we're monitoring, such as delay and reverb for ambience in headphones or in monitor mixes. On this side of the console, we have our master section, which includes 2 stereo meters. We've got a switch here that allows us to either record with those plugins we have in the console or just send them to the monitors. We can set up our headphone source. We can do a recall of the console, so if you're tracking and you have a particular setup you want to use again, you can quickly recall that. We can select our monitor source, which can be headphones, it can be our monitor output, or output 3 and 4. And we also have additional control over the monitors down here. We can set those to mono, we can completely mute the monitors. Now we can see the level here in the meter on the front panel of the Apollo Twin, and also in the meter in the console for channel 1 input. Now if we open up that LA2 plugin we inserted earlier, we can see that the signal is also passing through that. And again, we can route that just to our monitors, or we can also route that to our DAW and record the signal with that compression. A big bonus with the Apollo Twin is not only can we track with plugins, but we can use those same plugins when we're mixing. So if we open up our DAW down here, I've got a session loaded up. When it plays back through the Apollo Twin and out to the monitors. So if we start our playback, we're feeding the signal straight out to our speakers, and again we can see our meters right here on the front panel of the Twin. Now if we want to add a plugin to this, we can simply drag it out. We'll add a 4K channel strip here on the bass, and we open that up. Now that plugin is inside our DAW, but it's actually using the DSP power from inside the Apollo Twin, so it's not impacting the CPU power we have in our computer at all. The Apollo Twin makes a great centerpiece for your studio because it has great sounding preamps, and you can expand it as well. With that 8-AT optical input, you could route 8 additional mic preamps inside the Apollo Twin through to your DAW. It has the DSP power on board for running plugins both when you're tracking and when you're mixing. And a really cool thing about it is when you're not using it in your studio, you could throw it in a backpack and it makes a great portable solution as well. I hope you enjoyed this look at the Universal Audio Apollo Twin. I think this interface is going to find its way into a lot of recording studios. I really had a blast playing with the Apollo Twin. I had a chance to check it out for a couple of weeks before the NAMM show. I used it on some sessions, took it out and used it as a portable interface because the thing is nice and compact, it's small, drops right into your laptop bag with that Thunderbolt connection, you get plenty of bandwidth back and forth. The preamps sound really good on it. Plug your headphones in, basically you're jamming. Plug your guitar straight in, you can use an amp simulator plug-in if you want to. If you want to put a microphone on your amp and run that into the back, you've got that. Simple interface to use, lightweight, compact, man, it's really cool. So next up, we're going to move back into the world of guitars. We've once again got Jon over here, and this time he's featuring a new guitar from PRS.
Thanks, Mitch. The new PRS S2 series actually goes and shows PRS trying to expand the group of people who've gone and fallen in love with the guitar in the last 30 years. With the S2, they're starting to use a beveled body. They've got standard and much beloved PRS appointments such as the custom wound PRS pickups. They've actually gone ahead and gone with a 4-knob array here for your control electronics, so you can go ahead and have maximum tonal versatility. They also have pull-push pots here. So you can go ahead and convert to single coil versus humbucker. I'll go ahead and play a couple of the tones here now, give you a chance to listen to the neck pickup. And this is going to be in humbucker mode. Now in single coil mode. Same thing with the lead pickup position. Now in single coil mode. PRS has gone ahead and done these changes and introduced the S2 model as a way of going ahead and basically offering the PRS feel, comfort, and sound at a new price point that's more affordable and more accessible to players. They're obviously going for something that has maximum comfort, maximum sonic versatility, and very important to note, it's actually made in the USA. So at this kind of price point, and with the features it offers, I think it's going to go ahead and appeal to a lot of different guitarists. Mitch?
Thanks, John. Excellent demo of the S2. I've had a chance to go out to the PRS factory a couple of times, and they really take so much pride in what they're doing, whether it's the imported SE line or their full-on PRS line. But now the new S2 line, which is also made in Stevensville, they take so much pride in what they're doing there. They really want to deliver a product that gives you so much playability and such great tone, great versatility. And with these S2 prices, I mean, they're just killer guitars.
There are 5 guitars in that line now, right?
I think so, yeah.
The one that I actually have fallen in love with is the Starla. It's the one with, I think, a single cut and a Bigsby.
Right.
It's like and that kind of the seafoam green. That is a gorgeous guitar.
Yeah, right. You get all that twang, and you get
all that twang. You know, and they initially did it as a kind of a limited release, and I think there were so many people, including myself. I know the PRS people a little bit because I keep begging them for guitars. Send me something, please.
Right,
I'll demo it, please. Send it.
Right.
And so that the moment that I saw that they kind of didn't actually, even when it was on a limited release, I was like, can you please send one? It's like, we're out. Mm-hmm. So I was really excited to see them actually just include that in the actual line. I think it's what's neat that I think PRS is doing that's really smart is that they're making guitars that aren't classic PRS. They're not just going, okay, it's only the PRS scale. We're actually going to put Floyds on there. We're going to put we're going to put Bigsby's on there.
Right.
Dating myself, Kahlers. No Kahler yet.
Yeah.
But they're doing things not to just make themselves more accessible, but I think what's neat about it is they're showing a flexibility to kind of go, you know what? We've done what we do really well. Mm-hmm. Now we want to do some new stuff, and they're excited about it, and they're doing it extremely well.
Yeah. And with all of the lines, they've kind of got the whole thing covered, all the way from the SE up to their private stock stuff. No matter what price point you're in, there's a PRS for you, and these S2s sit perfectly there.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a guitar player, you've got to do something to protect your guitars when you're storing them at home, and certainly when you're taking them out to gigs or taking them into the studio. The next products I want to show you are some that come from Gator Cases. Now, Gator's making an incredible variety of cases for all sorts of gear, but they came out at NAMM with these 2 new guitar cases that are really cool. Now, this one I have here in front of me is the Journeyman Dreadnought case. And there's some interesting things about this. This is actually a wooden case. It uses an antique bronze hardware around this, looks really cool. They've covered it with what they call a pebbled burlap finish, which is very durable. It doesn't, you're not going to have any problem with tears on that. It's going to last basically the lifetime of the case, or your lifetime, probably longer than you will live. This case will be happy. It's got a leather style binding on it here. But what's cool is on the inside. When you open this up, I'm going to try and show it to you here. It's tough to see, but there's a really thick pad on the back of this. There's a pad on the back of this that's about 3/4 inch thick. So as opposed to cases where it sits right in there just on some velvet or something in the back, your guitar is nicely protected when it sits inside this case by that extra foam that's inside there. And this plush lining really protects the finish as well. But a really cool thing that I like about this is that there's a cutout for the end pin. Now, I had an experience once where I was flying with an acoustic guitar, and I came into it was a New York airport that I won't name, LaGuardia, and as I watched, the guy from the baggage claim grabbed my guitar and bounced it right on the end pin. And fortunately, the guitar survived, but that's a weak spot in most cases because the end pin is actually what rests on the bottom of the case. Here, they've done a U-shaped cutout, so when your guitar slides in, it's actually sitting firmly held all the way around the body as well as the end pin. You don't have that problem. You got a tight neck support up here, again with that plush lining on the top as well. Presses down, it keeps the guitar firmly held this way without compacting or compressing the top or the strings. So a really nice case that's lightweight, even though it's made from wood, and it provides you with a lot of protection for your guitar. Very cool. That's not the only new case from Gator. They also came out with the Pro Go gig bags. Now, I've got a lot of gig bags that I use for my guitars, and some of them range from just a vinyl bag that it slips into to things that are basically cases. This falls more into that latter category. This provides a lot of protection for your guitar. It's got an extremely durable fabric that it's made out of, totally rip resistant. Lots of pockets, lots of places for storing things. Up front here, there's one that's padded. If you have an iPad mini, it'll slip right in there. We've got a large pocket here with a padded pocket inside that. That's very plush lined that you could slip a laptop into or a full-sized iPad. There are Velcro straps here for locking in accessories, little pockets inside for all the things that you need to keep, strings, string cutters, picks, all that type of stuff. Smaller pocket here on the front, and in back, we've got a pocket up here, and what's inside there is actually a rain cover. So if you're taking this out and it's a downpour, you can pull that cover out, slip it over the case, and it's going to help keep your guitar dry. You don't have to get your gig bag all soaked. Now when you open this up, let's see if we can make this work here. We've got an extremely plush interior on this. What I like about it is there's actually a durable fabric here and a durable fabric down here. I don't know if you can see that on the video. So that's going to protect from the strings ripping up the inside of the case and the bridge and the hardware ripping it up on that end. But it's so plush and so thick. It must have an inch of foam on the outside here. And that's kind of a cross between a real dense foam and a much more compressible foam that protects very, very well. And what's cool is we've got a removable neck support here. So if you've got a guitar that sits down low and doesn't have an angle to the headstock, you can drop it right in. But if you have one with an angled headstock, put that in, stays in place with Velcro, the neck slips right in here, and it's held very firmly. If the guitar falls over, it absorbs that impact, and you don't have to worry about the headstock snapping off. On the other end, we've got a removable pad here. If your guitar is too small for the case, not long enough for the case, you can drop this in. If it's a long guitar, you can drop that out. And this also has that cutaway for the end pin or the strap pin. So if you drop the case on its bottom, you won't be, again, pushing that up into the body and possibly cracking the body. So really a well-made gig bag. It's got two straps on the back. Those are actually, what I like about this is they've got hooks here that allow you to release the straps, but they're covered with fabric. So they're not digging into things, they're not scratching things. So you can pull those off. There's a place here for a belt strap if you want to have that. So really an incredible gig bag. Lightweight. I really like this gig bag. Are you a gig bag guy or are you a case guy?
You know, the funny thing is that when you fly, ironically, cases are now less safe than gig bags. A really well-made gig bag is actually going to protect your instrument better than a case because a case is a rigid environment. So when that thing gets, I'll mention it a little bit later, but it gets stratapulted, the case actually, that energy goes through the case and into your instrument. And so there are a number of really smart features there. You know, one of the things is by the headstock there, the strings are always scratching the top of the gig bag on the inside. So that's a really smart feature. The other thing is when you were talking about the backset headstock, I had a buddy, I actually was there like 2 minutes after the car trunk slam in a gig bag that did not have that functionality, just broke the headstock off of an Ibanez with a backset headstock. Ouch. So that's a really smart feature. They obviously have had a little experience in that end of the guitar, and you know, so it's a really smart feature.
Right, absolutely. Personally, I like to have both. I like to have a hard shell case for when I want maximum protection. You know, if somebody else is going to be handling the guitar, if it's going to get thrown into the back of a truck, if it's going on a longer drive, I like to have that hard case protection for my guitar. But if I'm carrying it, if it's a gig around town, if I'm running over here to do a session in the studio, a gig bag is great. And one like this is so close to the protection that a hard case offers that you feel really comfortable taking your guitar in it.
The other thing, especially for fly dates, is you can actually take that on the plane. So it means that you're not paying for an additional piece of luggage, which we're not going to talk about. Now, speaking of things we are going to talk about, we have the lovely electro-harmonix Slammi pedal. As the name implies, Slammi, it rhymes with, and it is basically, as we're about to talk about in the video, it is basically a foot-controlled polyphonic pitch shifter.
Check that out.
Check that out. So speaking of which, let's go to the video. So this is the electro-harmonix Slammi pedal, and it's a foot-controlled polyphonic pitch shifter. Polyphonic really means you can hit all the notes of a chord and either bring them up or down in pitch, and it tracks incredibly well. To turn it on, you bring the toe down like that, and the same thing to turn it off. I've got a little jack there on the input there to remind you that if you leave this thing plugged in with a cable, even in the off position, it'll drain your battery. So don't forget that. On the left-hand side here, you've got a calibrate function. Boom. And what that enables you to do is to set the pitch shift so it either happens when you bring the heel back or the pitch shift happens when you bring it into the flat position. Very cool functionality. Now also on this side here, you've got the dry volume control, which basically allows you to blend in or out the direct signal. And this controls the range of how much pitch shift you're going to have, either up or down, depending on where this button is pushed. Now, one of the other interesting things about this pedal is it doesn't use a traditional pot to control the pitch. So basically, you're just moving the pedal, not some other part that's connected to the bass. Really interesting design. All right, now one of the things I love about this pedal is it's got a bunch of great sounds in it, but it also plays well with other devices. So I'm going to be using my metal muff and my stereo memory man on a number of the demos. All right, this first demo though is just going to be using the pedal on its own. So for this next demo, I've gotten rid of the direct signal and I've pitched the pedal up a fifth and I've added in the stereo memory man. So for this demo, I've still got the pedal pitched up a fifth, but I've added in the direct signal and also the metal muff. So this last demo really demonstrates kind of the rocking functionality, and you really get a chance to hear how incredibly well this unit tracks. For more information about the Slammi, please visit Sweetwater, Premier Guitar, or GearTunes.com. Cheers.
Doug, that's incredible. I mean, this pedal lets you have so much control, so much expressive control of your playing with all that pitch shifting and everything. Really a fun pedal.
I think it's a little bit of an indulgent pedal, which is probably my favorite kind. I think ultimately guitar playing is really, in many respects, very a self-indulgent thing because you're really, it's one of the few times in life it really is just about you. Mm-hmm. Now that said, as a guitar player, I actually love to support other musicians, but this pedal is really when you're doing this type of and you know and the pit and the harmony stuff, it's really neat. And it's what's neat about this type of device is that there are certain types of pedals that you want to be able to go to create very unique sounds that you use to mark, if you will, a track or a set, such that when you go to it, it's something that in some ways is kind of iconic in the framework of the song. It's you know, I mean, if you think about it, you've heard wah wah a million times. I love wah wah, but the point being is like, all right, it's wah wah again. Okay, great. Right. You know, it's a guitar whammy bar. But this type of device, and you know, because of the range of things that this does and the level of functionality, and it's just kind of cool the way it actually operates. It's just a really neat piece of gear. I had a lot of fun doing this.
Oh, I bet you did. I bet you did. This is kind of one of a series of pedals from them that don't have any moving parts, do they?
Well, and this is the whole thing about what they're doing that I think is very fascinating is that they are just kind of going, hey, how can we build something that isn't like any, you know, because electro-harmonix is really a legacy company.
Right.
One of a few legacy companies where the original owner is still the original owner. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I've looked at those old circuit boards of those vintage big muffs and all of that stuff, and they just kind of went, well, what can we do that is going to enable us to create a newer, unique experience? And I think it's a very fascinating approach for building effects.
Absolutely. So much fun.
How long did it take for you to actually feel comfortable with the pedal, given all of the capabilities built inside?
You know, it was very interesting. I actually, and I don't know about you guys, but I always start off watching guys like Robert's demos. I always want to know what people are doing with the gear. And so I'm going to always go take a look at a manufacturer's demo because, I want to be as informed as I can be before I actually start demoing it. So I had a pretty good idea about what it did, but it took me a minute to kind of really figure out how I was going to use it, which actually for me is actually, it's not a bad thing. It's not that it was a difficult piece of gear to use. It was a matter of figuring out how I was going to find that mode of expression where I wasn't imitating something that somebody else had done in another demo. Because you don't want them to go, hey, you just ripped off the other demo. I was like, well, okay, what that guy did was great. The electro-harmonix video for this is really, really well done.
Right.
So what I needed to do was just kind of find what I could do on my own.
Sure. Sure. What a cool pedal. And with the Slammi, that brings us to the end of hour 1 of Guitars and Gear Live. We've had a blast so far, and we have so much great stuff coming up in the next 2 hours.